Hello everyone, this is coadb.com, or the Coat of Arms database, and today we are briefly going to discuss the genealogy and ancestral coat of arms of Robert Goddard. Now, Robert H. Goddard was born in 1882, and he was an American engineer, professor, physicist, and inventor who is credited with creating and building the world's first liquid-fueled rocket. Goddard's work as both theorist and engineer anticipated many of the developments that would make spaceflight possible. He has been called the man who ushered in the space age. And we see him here with one of his first rockets, and we see the beginnings of his family tree. His father was Nahum Danford Goddard, and his mother was Fanny Louise Hoyt. Now, what we do here at coadb.com is we start with the client's grandparents. Now, everyone has 4 grandparents, so you get to pick one of the 4, and we will take that grandparent and research their ancestry back several hundred years, or as far as records allow, and we provide that information to you, and then we also assess whether or not any of the ancestors owned a coat of arms. So let's kind of show you this concept with Robert Goddard. We're going to start. We could pick any line. We could pick his Hoyt line, or we could pick his Gates line, or we could pick his Upham line. But for purposes of this video, we're going to pick his Goddard line. So we show a chart here showing all his direct Goddard ancestors going back all the way through the 17th century and 16th and into the 15th century. As we see here, we get all the way back to about the year 1400 with John Goddard living in Wiltshire, England. Here we see a picture of Robert, born 1882. Now, if we skip forward several generations all the way to Walter Goddard, born in around the year 1430 in Wiltshire, England, okay? And he was the son of John. So Walter is basically the oldest known ancestor that we know anything about for Robert Goddard. And we know he lived in Wiltshire, England, and he lived in the 15th century. Now, to determine whether or not he had a coat of arms, we look to a source or a book called The Visitation of Wiltshire in the year 1565 by William Harvey, who was the King of Arms. And in this book, if we flip through it and we look for the entry for the surname Goddard, we find it. We find Goddard of Cliff, which was a location in Wiltshire. And we see Walter Goddard listed first. That's our Walter Goddard of Cheval. He was I believe the 11th great-grandfather of Robert Goddard. And it says here he was a gentleman, and he had 2 sons named John. And we see his coat of arms, most importantly up at the top, blazoned as follows. Gules, a chevron vert between 3 crescents argent. So what does that actually look like? A red shield with 3 half moons and a chevron with an alternating white and blue pattern. Now, let's learn a little bit more about this Walter. How did he get this coat of arms? We believe it was inherited by, he received it through inheritance, and we know that he was about the fourth great-grandson, 4X great-grandson of Walter Goddard, who lived in feudal times, born around the year 1231. He owned feudal tenements and lands in Chippenham and Aldbourne, Wiltshire, where he was granted lands by King Henry III. So perhaps he was granted a coat of arms that passed down through the family down to Walter Goddard, born 1430, and of course we know that one of his descendants was our well-known American physicist and engineer, Robert Goddard, and we see him next to this beautiful coat of arms of his ancestors here. If you enjoyed this video, please visit us at coadb.com, where we offer ancestral and genealogy research services. We will trace the ancestry of one of your grandparents back as far back as records allow, and then we will also provide an assessment as to whether or not they owned a coat of arms. And if they did, we'll help you find out which one. Thank you very much.